Nobody covers the Gamecocks like John Whittle joining us from the Big Spurt. I like that hat. John, what kind of hat is that there?
Appreciate that. That just helps me remember my name each day. Sometimes needed on Monday.
Well, then you need a W on it. You're J Dub. You're not just J.
Well, I can only deal with so much on Mondays, I think. So we'll just stick with this for now, and we'll see how it evolves from there. Got to get a good start out to the week.
Well, thanks for dealing with us on Mondays, John. We appreciate that as much as anybody. Um,
Well, no, I'm
so
just happy. I'm just happy that y'all are around today and not out shopping for a mattress here on President's Day.
that's on Labor Day.
There's no holiday I want to go shopping for anything. None.
Never.
I literally get migraine. 10 minutes in a shopping mall and I get migraines. That's how much I loathe the practice of shopping.
Ugh.
Just let me order it online, please.
I was gonna say Amazon's your friend then, I guess.
Amazon is my I did all of my wife's birthday and Valentine's, which is in the same week. No pressure. I did all of it courtesy of Amazon.
Do you get to combine the two, or do you have to do?
No, there's a strict rule. I discovered that when we first started dating. This is not one combined holiday. These are two separate holidays separated by 4 days. So make of that what you will. Walk through that minefield and try not to screw it up.
Well, if it
At
makes
least you get it all knocked out in 1 week.
Well, that's the way I look at it, John. Get it all knocked out in 1 week, and then I'm smooth sailing till like Christmas.
Yeah.
So I get 10 months of not shopping for much of anything.
that's a good point. If it makes you feel any better, my kids March 2nd, my wife March 8th. So that's a tough week for me too. But
Yeah.
you know,
But then you're smooth sailing.
yeah. But then we're good to go until Easter baskets.
Yeah, I don't do much for Easter baskets.
See, when you have kids, there's always something.
Well, then of course, yeah, got to do.
But yeah, you know, we were talking, John, about just how special everything was this weekend to be able to see so many incredible people there to honor Coach Tanner, and of course, I got to see a sweep as well. So on Friday, I noticed something that morning before the game. I'd never seen this before. I was out there. We had the show, and then I was out there early on Saturday and saw it again. Mike, I don't know if you've ever seen this. John, I think you and I might have even talked about it, but I'd never seen a team line up on the first base line and take bunting practice like that, ever. And this is before anything. They come out of the tunnel, and they get 3 pitches, and they go down the first base line, they go down the third base line, and then I think it's a squeeze round. Now, I've seen bunting and BP. You always get a couple, and then you hit, right? But I had never seen the team line up that way. So I asked Coach. He said, nobody's ever asked me why I do that. And I was like, well, I'm curious. And he said, because he doesn't want to interrupt batting practice. And he said, it doesn't take a lot to bunt. Just get the ball down. I mean, he makes it sound so simple, right? So he said, we come out, we get our bunts in, and then we get to go stretch and let's get going. And when it's time to take BP, I want them focused on hitting the baseball. I've been around this game my whole life. I've never even thought about it that way. But that is something, it's a lot different that they're doing a few hours before game time now. And fundamentally, you can tell that he's focused on that. And it seems like it worked this weekend. I'm not talking about the bunting. I'm talking about the fundamentals. John, let's go back to the 8th inning on Friday night. It's a 1-run game. They get a runner on first. They steal second. A sac fly moves them to third. You get a 2-out knock. It makes it 5-3. You go to the 9th inning, your closer comes in, he throws 5 pitches, and the game is over. That's how it's done. And it feels like we haven't seen a lot of that around here in a while.
Yeah, well, Jamie, I'm going to have to correct you. That was 6 pitches from Brendan Sweeney in that 9th inning. Yeah, not just 5. So went a lot longer than you expressed.
Kent told me 5, so I'm putting that on record.
No, but I thought it was a really good weekend, really good fundamental baseball. 1 error for South Carolina on the weekend, and that was on a really difficult play as well. So I was pleased with all of it, and that is an interesting observation that you had from a bunting standpoint. I hadn't seen that before. I've seen there's some programs that have a bunt station back behind the cage for players to hit while they're waiting in between their BP rounds. which separates it off a little bit. But that was the first time I had seen that, so that was kind of unique. And I don't know how often South Carolina is going to use a bunt from 1 to 9. There's certainly some guys who are very capable of doing it. Blake Jackson dropped one, tried to. Ended up being the sacrifice. It looked like he was trying to bunt for a hit, but there are going to be a couple guys who do it. But it's good, clean baseball, attention to detail, and you gotta like that aspect of it.
Yeah. How about the staff this weekend? 15 innings. That's what they wanted, John. They wanted to get to 5 innings, and all 3 of them got their lines. Have y'all seen their lines? All of them 5 innings. All of them 9 strikeouts. Only 1 walk out of the 3 starters this weekend, and they gave up 4 total hits between McCoy, Becker, and Eskew. I don't care who you're playing, especially a northern team. Well, these northern teams, all they do is hit. The first time they were on the field this season, Sacred Heart, was Thursday at Founders Park, like outdoors on a field. They've literally hit for a month, and they didn't hit this weekend.
Yeah, and Becker could have gone a little bit more. I think the other 2 guys kind of probably reached at least close to their pitch count. Becker was down at 60 pitches through 5 innings, and that 1 hit he gave up. He leaped to try to field a ground ball chopper over his head. It tipped off his glove and deflected to where Naraki couldn't make the play. That was the only hit given up that whole game. Ryder Garino pitched two perfect innings afterwards. So great weekend for the pitching staff as a whole. Certainly for the starters. Tyler Pitzer had a rough go of it Friday night, but I thought it was a very smart move by Paul Maneri to get him back out there yesterday to close that game out and get him back on the horse and feeling good after his appearance from Friday. So can't ask for anything more from that pitching staff, right?
No, not at all. I think that it'll be talked about this week, Mike. I'm not sure how much you saw of the Friday game, but Dylan Eskew did hit 4 guys, and he'll hit a guy now. He hit. I think he might have led the SEC last year in HBPs, or he was close to it. But the thing that stood out to me about that, and I was talking to Coach Toman about this. No, you don't want him hitting 3 and 4 guys a game, especially when you get into the SEC. You'll pay for that stuff. I get it. But they were trying to establish the inner half of the plate. They kept coming back in there. And we haven't seen enough of that around here for a little while. It's been away. Not that they never threw inside, but they were legitimately trying to establish the inner half of the plate. So while the HBPs are going to be a negative, they're going to continue to try to work their way through that. And you've got to if you're going to throw 90, 91, you have to be able to paint the corners, right? So they're going to make these guys be able to throw on the inner half of the plate, and hopefully that part cleans itself up. But I like the strategy of it, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and Dylan Eskew's ball moves so much that he's going to hit some guys every once in a while, especially when he is trying to work that inner half. My perception.
John,
it's the hat, Jamie.
Can you hear us, John? There you go.
Yeah,
you're
good. Yeah. So but yeah, it's I think that's kind of an SQ deal more than anything, just because his ball moves so much.
All right, offensively, had some nice moments, but I think Coach Maneri said it best yesterday. I think he'd like to see them, perform a little bit better. Give us your synopsis of that.
Yeah, this is not going to be a dynamic offense. I don't think it's not going to be a real powerful offense. Not a ton of home runs, which is a little bit different. There are a few guys who can hit some. South Carolina has 4 guys hit double digits. That would be a surprise for me. Just in general, I thought there were some balls that were hard hit that just didn't fall, and that's going to happen from time to time. But I would have liked to have seen more offensively from this group. I thought they got off to a little bit of a slow start in each game, and kind of came around a little bit. A couple of those guys threw pretty good now for Sacred Heart. I mean, their Saturday starter was up to 95 on several occasions. Didn't have quite the command. Their starter on Friday was 94, 93, 94 over and over again. So they had some guys with some velocity to challenge South Carolina's hitters, and it was just okay offensively. And I don't do hot takes. I've written a column on the Big Spur from time to time called Cold Takes, because that's what I prefer. But I try to wait until after that Clemson series to form some strong opinions on things. And it's certainly something to monitor. How are things going to come together? Where do guys move in the order? Who starts? I mean, there were several different starters this weekend too. So it's some things that are interesting to follow for sure from an offensive standpoint.
John, and I agree with you. I take a lot of the stats in February with a grain of salt based on competition.
Very
I mean,
much.
you just had Ole Miss playing that massive showcase. There's one in Arlington. There's one in Arizona, right? But I can't remember which one they were in. Were they in Arlington? Is that where they were?
They were in Arlington.
Yeah, they're in Texas.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, like, obviously, if you start the season that way, you're going to get a little bit better indicator of where you are. You're also going to get humbled, and you're going to take some L's. So every program does it differently. I think with a first-year head coach and a lot of new players and a lot of question marks, this is the way you go. Let's get some confidence, and then kind of you'll be challenged plenty with the Clemson series and 30 SEC games. But to your point, I'm with you. Just on paper, it's not going to be the most explosive lineup in the SEC by any stretch. So the teams that I covered that Maneri had at LSU, they didn't have to play small ball because you had first and second rounders all over the place. You had a couple guys that would run, but they certainly didn't do a whole lot of small ball and moving runners over because you didn't need to. But could you see, with some of the potential deficiencies in this lineup, could you see more of that and guys being more aggressive on the bases, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't know Paul Maneri real well just yet. I can tell that some of the post-game media conversations after the first 3 days, he was starting to get a little bit annoyed because folks were asking him about small ball and manufacturing runs and that kind of thing, and that was really annoying for him. So I think at least I think he's at least for a little while gonna try to stay away from a team that earns that moniker, so to speak. But
yeah,
this you're right in the style of player that South Carolina has, that they're going to have to make the most of their opportunities and do all the little things right, whether it's dropping down a bunt from time to time and steal a base, hit a sac fly. There were a bunch of those this weekend. I didn't count up the number, but a bunch of sac flies. It may be a run here and a run there for this team at times, and maybe not quite as many big innings as Maneri would like. But the 3-run homer works nice too, which Nathan Hall was able to give him one of those yesterday. But yeah, he talked about not wanting walks and how it's you lose aggressiveness when those things start happening. And it's just interesting to hear him talk about offensive style. And I know that he wants to stay away from. I mean, he said flat out, "I want to stay away from being known as a small ball team." That's not what we're trying to be. We're trying to hit the ball hard. So I think it's going to be about finding the right balance. To your point, with how this team is going to score runs.
Well, I think I think what we're getting at here, to your point, John, is I agree. I do think I don't think that's how he wants to be known at all. But when those moments present themselves, is this team capable of doing those things? Because they haven't been. I mean, they have been and they haven't been. They've been very spotty at that. We were talking to Coach Tanner about it the other day, right? You got a runner on third with less than 2 outs. What are you doing sitting there looking at 2 strikes for? be aggressive. He needs to score. And this team, while they didn't, hit 7 home runs this weekend and hit 350 and yada, 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 they did take advantage of the opportunities they were given. And that team gave them a lot. You could clearly tell defensively they had not been on the field. They have one of the worst catchers in baseball. I don't know if Stake Newman is just in there for his bat or they don't have anybody, or I don't know. But Stake Newman needs to learn how to catch the baseball before he worries about literally anything else at all in his game. He was awful. But Carolina took advantage of it. They didn't just leave guys hanging around, and we've seen that a lot regardless of competition, where you've been gifted all these opportunities and it's like, man, they're not touching home plate. What do we need to do to get them in? And when they were given those opportunities this weekend, most of those guys ended up coming home to score. And to your point too, John, I do think that offensively it's a team that will continue to get better. And it will take some time, and they will establish an identity of who they are. But I just don't know that it's going to be a team that goes out and hits, 120 home runs. I don't know that that's in the cards either. But overall they're 3-0. And this Mike, you pointed out who they're playing this weekend. And this is a team that did return a lot they won their league last year. It's going to take them probably another 2 weeks to even find their feet because they haven't been able to get on the field. But largely everybody they play up until the SEC outside of Clemson, they should beat all of them. You're probably going to slip up somewhere, but they're going to get a few weeks of being able to kind of figure out who they are against teams that they should beat, so mistakes won't hurt them as bad. And we'll see where they are when they get into the Oklahoma series.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Their catcher, as you mentioned, had a tough weekend back there. He's their backup catcher. Their starting catcher wasn't available this weekend for whatever reason, and
well, they might as well played without a catcher. He was horrible. You should have heard Toman. Dude, I almost peed on myself laughing at Toman talk about this guy.
Yeah, well, Toman could have given a little bit better effort on Ray's first pitch too. So Toman may want to back off the criticism a little bit.
He blew it.
he did. It wasn't the best first pitch, but the catcher's got to make that guy look good out there on the mound, regardless of who it is. Certainly when it's Ray Tanner. But you're right. And but to the point too about stolen bases, like South Carolina obviously knew what they had behind the plate in Old Stake, who did hit a double off the wall on Friday night, so maybe he can swing the bat a little bit. But then South Carolina knew what was going on. But South Carolina is also a little bit more athletic this year. That's something that's trended up over the last couple of seasons. They have some guys who can go out there, or more guys who can go out there and have the ability to take a bag when needed. So, that's certainly something that has steadily improved the last couple of years and is at its best this year than it has been in a while. That's something that needs to keep getting better too. So, but yeah, they understood what was happening and took advantage of that.
What do you want to be known as, son? Steak or pork chop? I'll take steak, Dad. Okay. Well, that's what we'll put up there on the big screen. Yeah, he was. Ooh.
Let's not kill the kid. He's got a family out there, Jamie.
Poor Jamie. Poor kid.
We're spending 5 minutes.
Hey,
5 minutes trashing this poor guy from Sacred Heart.
Dude.
Who hadn't been out on the field, as you mentioned.
I have a lot of give, and I got a lot of give. For it is a very difficult game to play. But if you can't literally simply catch the baseball, you can't be a catcher. I just can't handle it. It was terrible. So best of luck to Sacred Heart as he moves along. They were actually. I think I do like their group. They got some huge dudes. Not to mention their coach, who's like 7'5". I mean, they were something. All right, Carolina's back on the field tomorrow at 4, and then Wednesday at 4. Got to keep an eye on the weather again this week. And then next weekend, Milwaukee will be in town, and it's expected to be really cold once again. So Carolina's it should be okay this week, but they do have to go to Rock Hill tomorrow night. I hope all the Rock Hill Gamecocks get to go out and watch them play. That'll be fun.
Yeah,
All right.
Winthrop, I'm sure has. I think they had a good weekend. I don't know if they swept, but they won a couple of games up there. And they got a new head coach, a little bit new energy. There'll be sun delay on Tuesday because of the batter's eye or the field positioning. I'm sure it'll be about 15 minutes. We'll have to pause the game, but yeah, I mean, South Carolina's got to play well to win on Tuesday for sure.
We don't know who they're starting yet, do we?
I think it'll be Jarvis Evans, but we don't know that for sure.
Okay. All right. That's the good. Let's get to the bad. Yesterday was a train wreck for Dawn Staley's program.
Whew.
Holy moly. They got beat by 30 points on their home floor by UConn. Not only is it 71 game winning streak over at home, but they all of a sudden look like they've got some real questions. And I mean real question when it comes to, getting where they want to go, which is the Final Four and having a chance to win another national championship. They've lost 2 of 3 against 2 teams that are also expected to be in contention. But that right there, I've heard it called humiliating. I've heard it called humbling. What do you call it?
I would go more humiliating than humbling. If I'm choosing between those two words, you've already taken a couple of losses here this year. UCLA was the attention getter, and then Texas a week ago. I mean, that's 2 losses in a week for the Gamecocks now. So I don't know if the team needed to be humbled. I got to give UConn a lot of credit though, and I was of course at the baseball game on Sunday, so I didn't see a ton of it. I kind of had it on in the background, keeping half an eye on it while the game was going on. But I got to give some credit to UConn. Those girls nailed their knocked down shot after shot after shot, and every time South Carolina tried to do something, they just came back and knocked down another 3. But South Carolina was loose with the basketball. I mean, UConn had 5 steals in the first half and turned those into points. I mean, it was just it was a butt kicking from start to finish. And South Carolina had that one little 7-0 run or 8-0 run that UConn came right back and topped. And I mean, that was it. It was over from there. So I mean, it was butt kicking from start to finish.
I was talking to Brad Mueller yesterday. He said in his 15 years calling the games, it was the worst performance he'd ever seen. Just there was just nothing about it. I mean, it's one thing if you get just outplayed, but clearly you didn't play your best game or anything close to it.
No. I mean, it was over early. It was brutal. And
I was in the car and I turned it on. Brad's broadcast was actually on Sirius XM.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad does a great job of what any radio guy should do is continually say the score. And I kept hearing it, and I was like, "Well, that can't be right. Maybe the static or something. Something's not right. There's no way they're down 20 something points." And he said it like the 4th time, and I could tell in his voice the frustration, and I know what that's like. And I was like, "Holy smoke! That is correct. What in the hell happened?" So I only saw the 4th quarter of it, but they clearly got completely smoked.
Well, I mean, they won't have any issue against Arkansas this weekend. Arkansas is the worst team in the league, and they'll come to town. Then they go to Vanderbilt. They go to Ole Miss. I mean, they should be more than fine in both of those games. And then they got Kentucky to finish the regular season, who's in the top 10 right now. But they've got as many questions as they do answers for the first time in a long time. And we'll see what Dawn gets them to do here down the stretch. Still not, I wouldn't say panicking about them. I mean, they're capable of beating anybody. We know that. But right now, this is a tough stretch for this group. They looked really bad yesterday. And as you pointed out, John, credit to UConn as well. And, of course, that just added on to what happened on Saturday for the men. Saturday, I mean, you kind of wondered. We were watching. I was sitting there with John Strickland watching. And you were like, man, they're holding their own. Is this going to be, this is going to be the night, right? All of a sudden, they're going to shock the world. Everybody's going to be wondering what in the world happened in Gainesville, or the dam will break at some point in time, and the dam broke. And Carolina ended up giving up 51 points in the second half of that contest against the Gators.
Yeah, there have been some games that I've felt pretty good about at least being competitive, if not winning it. But last night wasn't one of them. Or Saturday night wasn't one of them. When it was close throughout the first half, I mean, I was really impressed. I thought it would probably fall apart in the second half, and unfortunately it did for South Carolina. But that wasn't a game that I was really expecting for South Carolina to hang tough and hang in there, and they're going to have some other opportunities this year to win, but I didn't have Saturday circled on my calendar as one that was very likely. So great first half, and Florida got rolling in the second half.
They'll have a shot Tuesday.
Yeah.
They'll have a shot. I'll be there for that one. LSU is a team that's reeling. Now they pulled off like a rabbit out of the hat in their last game. They had their best player, the transfer from Kansas State, hit a 4-point play and a 3-point play in the final 20 seconds of the game to win. But for the most part, they have been scuffling all year long. I'm not expecting the best of crowds on a late Tuesday night in Baton Rouge. I mean, if you start looking at the games on the schedule, because nobody wants to go 0-18, you just don't. This is one where you would think you've got a good shot of it.
Yeah, I think South Carolina's got a really good shot in 4 of their last 6. I mean, I'm certainly not predicting 4 wins.
Is that a parlay, John? Are you telling people to go ahead and bet?
I mean, I think South Carolina pulls out a couple of these. I'm certainly not saying all 4, but I think they can certainly pull out a couple of these between.
Give them to me. I don't have it in front of me. Which ones are you talking?
You start as you mentioned tomorrow at LSU, then home against Texas. You're at Missouri, which I don't think there's a particularly good chance.
They're really good. They are really good. They're what Carolina wants to be next year with a good portal class, which is why Missouri is where they are. They went ahead and they got great kids in the portal.
Absolutely. And then the next 2, Saturday, March 1st, you're home against Arkansas.
Winnable.
Then Tuesday at home against Georgia.
Winnable.
And then you're not going to win at Tennessee to conclude the regular season.
That would be tough.
And Tennessee's going to have some things on the line, I would certainly imagine. That game, so they're going to be fired up and ready to roll on senior day as well. I'm assuming Tennessee has some 25-year-old seniors like everybody else does. But yeah, I mean, I think there's 4 very winnable games the rest of the year.
Well, I agree with you.
I think, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, because you were around, but didn't Zakai Ziegler play against Devin Downey?
Actually, I think him and John Roach were a fun battle to watch back in the day. I thought the move he made on Brian Winters was still very memorable as well. But yeah, he's been around the block a while.
I remember the old days of Melvin Watson and Zakai Ziegler going back and forth.
Hey, they're babies compared to Texas A&M. A&M is just a bunch of grown-ass men. Like they walk out and they're like, they're on the team bus filling out their IRAs and 401ks. They're like, oh yeah, we got another college basketball game to play in. They're really old, and they're a problem because they turn the game into a prison brawl and they beat you up, and it's like nobody wants any part of them.
Mm-hmm.
If the tournament were today, if they were going to select the field today, how likely is it that Auburn, Alabama, and Florida would be? I know Duke is in there, but I'm saying how likelihood is it that those 3 would be the top 3 seeds?
Well, they'd be 3 of the top 4. Whether or not Duke would be ahead of Florida or behind Florida, Joe Lunardi didn't move Alabama down at all, based on losing to the number 1 team by far in every metric in Auburn. So Auburn and Alabama would still be 1-2. I don't know if Florida would be 3 or 4, but the SEC would have 3 of the top 4, guaranteed.
Well, in Tennessee is knocking on the door too. So even if one of those teams stumbled, Tennessee's like, "Hey, we're here."
And A&M is actually ahead of Tennessee. So
oh
A&M,
yeah, that's right.
yeah. So A&M is knocking on that door. Like it's not if Duke somehow stubbed its toe in a weak ACC, it's not out of the realm of possibility that you could have all 4 number 1 seeds from the same league. That has, of course, never happened. Neither has 3 of 4 ever happened. But it's a weird year. It's a unbelievable year for this conference.
Not for South.
Jamie,
It's an unbelievable year.
Jamie, you started with football, or excuse me, you started with baseball, went to women's basketball, then men's basketball. You got to finish on a high note with softball, right?
That's where we're going. They're 10-0.
Oh, okay, okay.
They are not. They've
I
got
didn't know if you were going there or not.
I'm going there. I promise.
Okay.
The opposing first baseman was named Steak, right? Steak Johnson for
pork chop.
Filet Mignon Williams in right field.
They're getting the 4th most votes right now, knocking on the door of the top 25. And as you pointed out, John, they are 10-0, and they've got another tournament coming up this weekend. But they got North Carolina this week. If they can somehow get through it unscathed, Ashley Chastain could be in the top 25 early on in her first year. That's pretty remarkable.
That'd be really impressive. Five run rule victories for the Gamecocks over the weekend. They've been really dominant on the mound. Jory Hurd, Neely Lamb, Sam Gress, they've all been really, really good. Got a transfer from Oklahoma, Quincy Lilio, call her Q. She's been great at the top of the order. I know that Ashley's really happy.
John, she's hitting 640 on the season. She's been more than great. She's got to be leading the country in batting average. I haven't looked it up.
I haven't either. 775 on base percentage. She's got 15 walks. 15 walks already in 10 games. She's been awesome. And South Carolina's played great defensively, leads the SEC in double plays turned. So it's been a really nice start. Not great competition. Beat UVA twice to start the season. Virginia's got a decent team. They've lost a bunch of 1-run games this year. Virginia has. So not very nice start, as you mentioned. A big game on a game against North Carolina, currently scheduled for Wednesday. Might move up, may have to move. It's a tough weather day on Wednesday, so we'll see what comes with that. Ashley Chastain, great start with Gamecocks Softball.
Yeah, she's the best. They actually had already. They haven't announced it, John, but they've shifted to TBA on that. So we should know something, I would imagine, here pretty soon today.
Yeah, I'd imagine in the next few hours they've got to make a decision on whether to move a game up a day or not.
Well, another busy week for John Whittle. You're like Mike remembers these days. You're like Derek Scott. How many of you can there be? Like Derek called the game Friday, jumped in the car Saturday morning, drove down to Gainesville, called the game, drove back to Columbia, called the game Sunday.
No. He drove
the team bus. Alex drove the car back, right?
Yeah, Alex Jones rode down there with him and drove the car back. And Derek got to hop on a flight. Alex didn't get to hop on that team plane to come back to Columbia. I haven't talked to Alex. I hope he made it back.
He's still sleeping.
Man, maybe so. Gainesville's not that far. I'm gonna have to question his ability if he's still sleeping from Saturday. But I think he might be okay. I haven't heard from him yet. I got to check in.
Well, it's a busy time. There's no doubt. John, thanks for all you do. Great to spend time with you this week. That was a lot of fun. That whole thing was a lot of fun. Everything about it. Being able to see everybody and so many guys that you call friends. Obviously, you covered a lot of these guys. It was 48 hours of just awesome stuff in Columbia, South Carolina. So I'm glad we all got together.
It started out at 10 o'clock on Friday morning with Inside the Gamecocks. Hell of a job putting everything together for that 4-hour show leading into the baseball season, and wonderful weekend for Ray Tanner. It was special all the way around. So you did a great job with the show, Stuart Lake and several other guys, but mainly Stuart Lake and putting together the celebratory opening weekend and all the things going on for Ray. So it was a great weekend, and you started it out. So kudos to you.
Well, I'm thankful for the people that agreed to come on. I had no idea I was going to get blindsided on Friday. John knows about this, Mike, obviously, as he was there. But when Lake walked in, he goes, "I got the big guy here. Do you want the big guy on?" I was like, "Oh, God. Put him in. We'll see what happens." And, of course, Toman stole the show like he normally does. So
his story of him getting tossed, and I remember that game like it was yesterday. It was – thank you, John.